taught me that anything worth doing is worth doing well. Anything worth committing to is worth committing to. I love to practice because the better a musician I became, I started then playing these wonderful musicians, and these folks were just great people. And it was like the cover charge to be around these great people was you got to practice and be good enough to be sitting next to them in a concert. And I was like, that was a cover charge. I was, it was worth paying. It was worth every penny.
In the music, actually, yeah, I mean, you need everything. You need the sensitivity. Sometimes you need also to be not too sensitive, because being too sensitive in your orchestra also something very dangerous. Yeah, you can interpretate every movement of somebody like it's because of you. As also, I mean, sometimes you need also to be like to have the distance to people. You need to be organized, of course. You need to be healthy. You need to be strong. You need to be. I mean, it's something very, very difficult, which challenge in many ways. I mean, as long you try to grow, as more you can, how to say, you have a nice method to have your own therapy. I think somehow this is, I mean, it's something fundamentally. It has a deeper sense, which not many things on earth has. Actually, if you think about the deeper sense of why we are here, there are not much things, not much. But the most people, they are just behind, I mean, just behind like being famous, being rich, being beautiful, all these stupid gods we have in this world now, right? But if you go deeper, there's not much. But music is one of them, actually. The mentality we have right now is everything has to be achieved easy, right? And if the game is not good anymore, I just change the game, or I change the wife, or I change everything just which is not good, you just change, right? This is a mentality have more in these days than before. So it's not going to be fun always. It's a lot of hard work. The fun of doing something is, after a while, to see it's getting better. This is a fun. It not means, and the moment of resistance, if something is not getting better, that this is no fun. This is fun, because if you see all these problems as a challenge, as a chance to learn. I mean, if there are no problems, we would be so frustrated. We are like getting depressed for sure, because to overcome problems, to grow, to learn of them. This actually is the spicy in living. You need a long breath to get a good musician. You need a long breath. You need a constant work, and you need a good combination between give confidence and time to the process, but also have like a constant and hard process in the practice, right? So it's not fun, as a relationship is not fun, as a marriage is not always fun, if having children is not always fun, but at the end of the day, you look back, everybody says, the children was the best I made. The long marriage of 40, 50 years, this was the best what happened to me. Now I'm 41, I can say I'm so blessed because I had this career. Looking back, it not means it's fun always, right? So just to how to say, to get these different values in life, which is more for the long term. Somehow you need in general to love what you do, but in the same moment, it's not going to be easy, right?
One needs to really find a way where you can perform and really play all the music that you have within you, and even though you don't always feel completely comfortable, practice a lot, but not too much.
You need to be very, very prepared and to know what do you want to do, how do you want to do, and make sure that you are going to invest your time into until you get. Be punctual, be honest, be serious. To be a professional. Be a professional is not to be the best bassoon ever in the world. Be a professional is that you are really committed with your job, with your work, and you're respectful everybody else at your place, at your workplace. Enjoy. I think enjoy a lot what you're doing and love it. If you really like it, enjoy it. Never stop enjoy.
Be true to yourself, be you, and if something doesn't feel right, just don't do it. Just don't do it for you, do what you do. Do what you do. We all heard the thing, treat others the way you would like to be treated. Well, you can do that musically, Don't step all over the flute player solo. Don't, you know what I mean? Don't, if you have a solo, you don't want somebody over there, you to make good music, you have to come in under there, you have to help them. You have to help them be their best. Do that in life. Help people be their best. Do the same in the music, and people will want you around musically and in person. So, but yeah, support, I would use that. Treat them the way you would like to be treated musically. I would use that in life also.
The thing is, when you get a job, people think, right, I've done it now, the end. The thing is, the next thing you have to do is to keep it. So it's a case of being prepared. Be very curious, orally curious, and not to take things as read. Just to be very, curious about the music, that kind of thing. That's very important.
Musicianship reflects who you are as a person. It reflects your life, your personality. So no matter what happens, to build the knowledge and skill you just need to learn, be open-minded, to explore all the new things, be absorptive like a sponge to absorb the water, to learn everything possible as much as you can. Discipline. Who can sit in front of the bench for hours and hours and play? That is something, discipline. Willing to do everything. Because, sitting in front of music stands, reading the music, it's boring and hard and difficult. And nobody can help you besides yourself. You are the only person who can help yourself. Of course, your mentors, teachers. But in order to sit there, you have to concentrate and think everything that's only on you. So disciplines, willing to do things, highly concentrate, of course. Multitask ability, that is something we'll do in our life as well too.
Do your homework. Pay yourself first. Practice first thing in the morning. Be a nice person. Show up on time. Be reliable. Be pleasant to sit next to.
It's an ecosystem of, organizations and players that are there to serve the community ultimately. And I think it's easy as a young player to feel like an outsider, or to feel like you need some sort of special connection or to be or play at a certain perfect level to be kind of part of that ecosystem. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think you just have to, you know, in those first gigs that you do, I think if you bring a lot of professionalism to your craft and you're a good colleague, then building on those experiences, you'll find your connections. Like they web on one another. Once you can kind of get to know people in that ecosystem, it does get a lot easier. Being a musician and being self-employed, you become so self-sufficient. You become really good at problem solving on your own. If you do find yourself needing to work another job for a little while, or you want to transition, or whatever it is in your life, that being independent and having the skill set to find the answers to your own problems, and translates pretty well into a lot of other work that you can kind of train on the go.
It has to be your calling. It has to be your passion, commitment, dedication, perseverance. Being passionate about what you do, being willing to commit to the many hours of preparation and submersing yourself in anything that has to do with music, going to concerts, listening to recordings. It's hard work. Enjoy the ride, because it just offers so much, and don't limit yourself to kinds of music. Don't get too caught up in, I only like this or that, or I'm a specialist. I mean, all that's well and good, but try to be open-minded to all kinds of music and all kinds of musicians, and listen to the opera singers, listen to pop singers on the radio or whatever, and try to at least enjoy what they're doing, if not apply some of the things you like about their artistry into our own world. It's never ending. It's just so many ways to kind of be inspired and enriched by a broad world of music that we have.
Music's infinity. So I have to always keep curiosity of this infinity. It's like a universe, right? You never know when it's the end of the universe. The same like music. It's the same. You never know. Even the same piece, each time you play is different. Your body's different, your understanding is different, the acoustics is different, the audience is different. So it is infinity. So it makes me more like character, more like curiosity of my music, of course, also related to my life. I never get bored with my child, with my student, with my pasta making. I never get bored.
We have to find ways to be kind to ourselves. The 3 C's, collaboration, communication, and collegiality, that are really important to be mindful of and to work towards. I call it my Taco Bell moment. After one particularly treacherous and terrible lesson, I thought, this is not working well, right? And I wound up wallowing in my sorrow at a Taco Bell, and I thought, this might be it. This might be all she wrote. I can't seem to figure out how to get it going, to do all of the things that I'm needing to do. And I realized I just hadn't actually found the right gear or the right tools, maybe both of those things. And so I, dug deeper and figured out to get back to work and not worry so much about the outside evaluation.
The importance of being curious, the importance of being confident and knowledgeable about exactly who you are and what you're bringing to the table and what your purpose is, but also understanding that needs to act in a complementary way to the people that you are collaborating with and interacting with, and it needs to be a delicate balance. And you need to know, just as musically, you need to know when to lift up your voice and make sure that you are heard. It's equally important to not do that at inappropriate times when it's important to listen to other people and to think about the importance of the function of other people and what they're doing and saying. It's important to lead, it's important to be able to be led, and to really analyze our relationships. I think is an important thing that music has taught me that's applicable to everyday life.
You have to be lucid about it. I think maybe that would be the most helpful thing. Get a lawyer. Get a lawyer really early on in your career. Well, I do think that you have to follow your motivation. So it's an impractical way to make a living, but it's possible. So the discipline that you can bring to it and the vision are essential. When I was very young, I kept thinking there had to be somebody who could tell me what to do, but I would like to suggest that we're all making it up, and some of us have been given the privilege of enough opportunity to test theories. So have that confidence that you can figure this out, but also have the curiosity and an equal measure of confidence to talk to different people.
Just being a good person, because you want to be surrounded by good colleagues, so be who you want to be surrounded by. You have to love the process, the practicing, because I feel like this career can be kind of relentless at times. So having patience and grace with yourself during this career. And there's one quote that comes to mind in Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, in a concentration camp and survived. And one quote that I loved out of that book was, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." And so it's like, if you have a why of why you want to play the bassoon, you can bear with like almost any failure, moving to a new city and not having friends in the city, or moving away from family or friends. And, this career is amazing, but it's hard.
Be open, be flexible. Things are not always going to go the way that you think, but have goals, and think about where it is that you want to be. Thinking about what is it, like what's your definition of success and quality of life, and don't accept things that are going to put you in a toxic environment, or put you in a situation where you're where it starts taking a toll on your quality of life or your mental health. Sometimes you have to trust your gut, and when it tells you to get out.
We got to work really hard. I mean, there are more and more bassoonists now than there ever have been, and less jobs. And so you have to really know what you want to do, and really just practice, work hard, set yourself apart. And yeah, it's a great career and profession, but it's really hard to get into it. So know what you want to do, and grab the bull by the horns and go. Know what you love and just go for it. Like, you've got to live, breathe, and die what you want to do, and be really prepared. For university interviews, you've got to be prepared for the interview with the committee, the search committee, the dean, the director, the students. I mean, then you have to be ready for a recital, and then also a master class, and be ready for all kinds of questions. So you have to be prepared, because there's going to be a huge amount of applicant pool for every job, and so you got to be ready and show your very best.
know what you want, why you want to be doing something. Do everything you should be for a reason. But don't get caught up in sort of it's a very simplistic way, but when you can't see the wood for the trees, you should think about the details, but just think about the bigger picture and think there's always a greater scheme of things.
Really be driven by the big picture of why you want to be in an orchestra. And if it's about, how do you say this without being like confrontational, but if it's about competitiveness and showing off, maybe it might not be the right place for you, because in the long term, like it's actually not what it's about. And you'll probably, especially competitiveness, if you win a job because you wanted to win a job and beat people, you're going to be miserable, because that's not what it is. It's an expression of this amazing world that we have this privilege to be the sort of the caretakers for, and so yeah, my advice would be to respect everyone around you, even if there's people that you don't necessarily like the style of their playing, or you might dismiss them as like a career second player. Trust me, there are things to learn from those people, and from principal players too, of course. Love it. Don't take it too seriously, and don't take yourself too seriously. Don't get stressed if you don't get the teacher that you think you want, because do you know what? Sometimes going down the different path is probably going to be a more interesting route, and it could be a much more fruitful route. Be open to change. Be open to differences. Love the other people, your colleagues. I can't think of anything more powerful to me, and I see it in the kids now too, the other people around them. Like, just sponge off them, and like remember that it's about like the journey is the goal. Like, it's like what is happening to you now is probably the greatest time in your life. Like, revel in it. Obviously, no is a word that we hear a lot, and maybe just find the power of no. Like, I know that sounds really esoteric, and I just made it up, but I actually firmly believe that no is probably a greater answer than yes most of the time. And eventually, and I'm not going to say it's because you work really hard, but sometimes you just win the lottery and you end up in a great orchestra playing beautiful repertoire, constantly challenging like what an orchestra is, what it represents, being part of its community. It's a privilege, and it's a great life.
Be prepared, like just know the music. It's absolutely no good turning up if you haven't prepared. Listen to the music, know how it's likely to go. Panic a little bit about the speed it might go. If there's some technical stuff, luckily most of the time it doesn't go at quite the same speed as the recordings, but yeah, you just need to be prepared for that. And also just be prepared to get on with people, because I find that music, sit next to the same people and you don't have a choice in who you sit next to. You turn up and you're sitting next to your principal, and if you get on with them, great, and if you don't, well, you've just got to suck it up and get on and play music together. And it's a very intimate relationship that you have to go in very much with an open mind. You have to be prepared to listen and be flexible, but have some conviction in what you're doing with your part. And as a second bassoon, just being so aware of intonation and the fact that the second part is equally or more important than the first part, not because you have all the nice solos, but because you are the foundation of the wind. You're actually really critical. Probably the most important is perseverance. You know, if you don't get it today, you might get it tomorrow, or you might get it next month, or you might get it in 3 years' time. It's you've got to stick with it, and believe in yourself. I think that's probably the most important, but also the hardest. So many musicians are so full of self-doubt. In fact, so many artists of any sort just struggle with self-doubt all the time, and it's never good enough. And just believing that you can do it, or you will be able to do it at some stage.
The music world is a very small community, and so one needs to be mindful of building those connections, but also if somebody misbehaves, everybody knows about it. So in terms of advice, it would be just be aware that you are always on trial, no matter who you're playing with and where and when. In that, if you do something that is inappropriate, people will notice, and it will most likely get back to your colleagues or your teachers or somebody else. It's a very small world, and mostly that's a really, really good thing. Always remember why you wanted to do music in the first place, which hopefully was music is fun. We talk about the job and the work, and we even say after somebody plays, nice job, and really fun is what probably started us down this road. Remembering that at times, maybe again when we're in the practice room and we're really working on something very intensely, just sort of go, I'm supposed to be doing this fun activity.
The fact that you become more aware of people around you, that we are all humans and we are all in this community. You learn how to be more empathetic. You learn how to be more, you are part of this community in which you can change stuff for the good. You are part of something bigger than yourself. And music teaches you how to be a teamwork. Being just that skill, that prepares you to work anywhere, because you need to really have that when you go to work, even if it's not in music field, in any field. You need to be able to relate to people and be a leader for the change of things that you need to change. You need to participate with the rest of the world to be part of the world. So music has that capacity. It teaches you that, especially when you work, when you have the experience of working in an orchestra. We make music together. We put all the sounds together. Everybody is part of the game. And you learn that just by doing that. So when you are in the everyday world, that's how you are going to act.
Always just keep everything wide open. Always keep every opportunity there. You never know where you're going to end up in life. Be flexible, be open to change. Definitely be an entrepreneur, which is something that is being more and more taught in even higher education today. And don't be afraid to make sacrifices and take on challenges that scare you. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. I mean, we as musicians especially are required to be vulnerable a lot. I mean, to get up in front of a large group of people and play, or to get behind a screen and be a number and play perfectly. It can be really intimidating, but I think the growth that you can get from being vulnerable and not being afraid for feedback and advice can be a great step in your career. And music really requires that. I mean, think of all the emotion that you have to play with when you perform. I mean, you need to be sexy, you need to be desperate, you need to be kind of stuck up and arrogant, and you can't be afraid to be any of those things. So being vulnerable not only in your playing, but in your teaching and performing, I think that's just the most important.
Organization is everything, and planning ahead. You know, just knowing what you have coming up, knowing what you need to do to be prepared for that. Stay inspired. Listen to music. Listen to things and people that are interesting. Listen to things that are experience things that are outside of your comfort zone or outside of your like discipline. You know, you can learn, you know, a lot of things about, you know, maybe new ways to think about what you're doing and how to approach what you're doing, or anything about that.
The music world is really small. You know, like everybody is connected to each other, and which is, you know, which is a good thing to have. You know, you feel like you're a big family and you have so much support from everyone. And so far at this point, like everywhere I have worked, like everybody is so nice and so supportive and understanding. So I feel like we all know what this is about and what this is like. Make sure to listen to tons of music recording, especially like, you know, these days it's like so easy to access with so many different recordings or like versions of recordings. So listen to not only the instrument you play, but also other instruments, other genres, and different music from different eras. And you don't know, like something would just like, maybe you would, you know, fall in love with Baroque, or maybe you fall in love with contemporary, or you just like normal, you just never know, but you have to put yourself there to explore and just listen to tons of them. It's like learning language, and like it's much easier to learn a language when you're in that environment. Yeah, and so you have to throw yourself into the big pool. Yeah, and also another thing is, don't be afraid to ask questions. And there's no small questions, there's no stupid questions. Any question is valid. It could lead to a path that solves a big problem.
When we were young, we really overreacted to missing a note, to failing. So you should embrace it. If you were a scientist, if you were an inventor, you would ruin it 1,000 times before you got it right. And even then, you may not be a wealthy millionaire off of it, you know? In a world where everyone is streaming a recording and there are few commitments to the real deal, meaning like actual instruments with humans and that kind of thing, the market is teeny tiny on classical. Ray Charles he's recorded in interviews, you know, the super famous Grammy-winning, you know, Ray Charles, right? He talked about everybody has soul and everybody can show their soul. It's just it's just how you show your soul. You might have people showing their soul by like the way they pipe icing on cookies for their kids at the holidays. You might have people bare their souls because they're handy and they're crafty and they build stuff for their home or their family. That's all forms of giving, and that's all forms of relating and networking. So that's kind of the way I like to suggest it.
When you get in an orchestra, no one ever asks your opinion about what are we going to play, where are we going to tour, you know, who's going to solo with us. They're not interested in your opinion, and you don't ever give it. And that's why I enjoyed doing my recitals. And so because I could finally be in charge of something and I could make some artistic decisions, I got to decide what was going to be played and who I played music with, which was really fun. About what I know about the industry, I know is if you get in a great orchestra, it's a great life. If you don't get in a great orchestra, you really have to work hard to do other things to supplement your salary. If you love playing that much, be on time, show up, be on time, be responsible, do your job. You know, if you do that, you're going to be a success at just about anything. If you want to go into it for a profession, you have to understand that somebody who goes to school and becomes a CPA, they have a 95% chance of getting a job when they graduate. When you go to a music conservatory or you go to any good school that has a music performance program, when you graduate, you probably have 5% or less chance of getting a paying job when you're done. So number one, you gotta want that so much. I'm willing to take that chance, okay? And then having said that, then you have to be the best wherever you are or right next to being the best. Whatever group you belong to, whatever school, whatever orchestra, whatever you're in, you've gotta be right up there. You can't fool yourself and think I'm gonna make this just because I'm gonna pay all this tuition to go to this expensive school. If you don't have it, what it takes, you know, it's really tough. You gotta practice hard. I recommend people go to summer music venues, Tanglewood, whatever you can get into. You know, Blue Water, Interlaken, you know, whatever you can do. Try to do something so you're doing it year round. If you can change and get another teacher in the summer, I think it's always nice, as long as that teacher doesn't try to completely change you as a person.
The biggest piece of advice I would say is to find your voice, to not get stuck following the path you think you should follow, or that maybe, you know, the field you kind of feel the field is telling you to follow, but rather figure out what is important to you, what issues are important to you, what are your values, and let that guide your path. If you're able to do that, I'll put it this way, no matter how sick I am, no matter what a bad day I've had, no matter if it's snowing at the end of April, I sit down in my office with a student to teach a lesson and I'm on cloud 9, because that's me being true to me as being a teacher. But I think my biggest advice is to students is to be open to your voice.
Take every opportunity that you can, with big emphasis on that you can. Really trying to find that good balance, and remember when you do go out and you are putting yourself out there, especially for the first time, you want to bring a really the best that you can bring. And if we're overbooked or feeling stressed, that carries with us to those jobs, and that's something that contractors and those that hire us notice. So that is something just sort of say yes to everything, but within reason.
There's a lot of ways to make a career in the music industry. That's the biggest thing is, up until I got to Arizona State, everyone thought if you're getting a performance degree, you're trying to play in an orchestra. And then over the last decade or so, you've seen groups. I have classmates who now play in professional chamber groups. I know people like Acropolis Reed Quintet, but they were in my generation. I have a buddy who serves in another Army band who went to school with them. And they were just a student group that formed at the University of Michigan, and now they're in our field, a very big name. And then you have other things you can do, like when I was in Texas, I knew a lot of people who were full-time teachers of bassoon and oboe. And a lot of them seem to very much enjoy it. And then, I'm in an Army band, which is a very different thing entirely. And I just wish that when I was younger, I had known all of these were possibilities. Not just by themselves, but you can do all of them simultaneously if you do the right stuff.
As music teachers need to stress, we're not just teaching them to play bassoon. We're not just teaching them music theory or music history. By playing bassoon, they have a lot of transferable skills that make them more than qualified for a range of work. And a lot of my students will say, well, I'm not qualified for that. I'm like, let's break down the skills you need to do this job. I bet you already do them as a musician. And that's what a lot of people haven't understood, is how to communicate that. You know, I have these skills as a musician, and that's how you can get a job. You can make the difference between getting a job and not getting a job. As a musician, I do this every day. For instance, you're self-sufficient. How many hours are musicians just go, you give me a task, I will go and do it. That's practicing, right? How many jobs require that? Like every job. You know, nobody wants to be micromanaged or be a micromanager. You know, how about teamwork? In order to chamber music, play with a pianist, play with anybody, play in an orchestra, we have to make compromises. We have to listen to other people, and we have to go somewhere and meet in the middle all the time. We have teamwork skills that are tested like every single day. Like this is more than most students do, because we're practicing our craft every day. We're applying it. That's why it's called applied studies in bassoon. We're applying all these things all the time. And then finally, problem solving. Because again, what are you doing all day as a bassoonist? You're practicing. And that's what is wrong. I have to listen and figure it out. And then I have to figure out how to fix it. And then I have to keep going until I do. And if it doesn't work, I have to course correct, and figure it out. Like, again, these skills are incredibly valuable in so many jobs. And you can get a job just by being able to explain what you do as a musician. Even if it's not a bassoon job, you can get a job that could help you get that bassoon job just by showing I have these skills that I practice hours every day. And if you just are able to communicate those skills, that what you're able to do to someone, you're going to be top in line for any job you want. It's just like, it's really something to do. Have a dream job. Don't be afraid of it. And I'm not just saying I want to play bassoon for money someday. I'm saying I want to be principal bassoon of this specific orchestra, or I want to be contrabassoon. Like mine, I will share it to you, you know, because I know it's scary. Back in the day, mine was I want to be contrabassoonist of the Metropolitan Opera. And since then, my long-term plan has changed. But every skill that I got because I wanted to be the contrabassoonist of the Metropolitan Opera, every skill that I learned along the way, everything that I did to try and do that actually evolved into skills that I use in my job. That is actually my dream job once I figured it out. And as my life changed, is to teaching. I use those skills every day. And so never be scared to really have that, you know, scared moment, like this is my dream. And don't worry if your dream job is going to change tomorrow. Like if you change your mind, that doesn't matter. But a lot of people just say, I'm going to be a musician and do whatever, you know, something. Try to be as specific as possible and work like the dickens to get it. that's what the best advice I could give.
Well, I think the biggest thing is getting along with people, getting along with your colleagues, and not to make up for any insecurities or you know, deficiencies in your playing. I mean, you have to, if you're in a playing ensemble, you have to be prepared. And being prepared means coming to that all the rehearsals and certainly the concert, you know, 30 to 45 minutes before, and being prepared to play and knowing your part.
Focus, perseverance, passion, picking yourself up when you fall down and knowing that you can go to the next step. I'm so grateful that I'm a musician. The skills that I have learned as a musician, I do use them in every other area of my life, and I try to help other people. I try to empower other people to learn those things too. I think it's being aware of the opportunities that are there and inventing things if you think they're not there. When I started my Quigley Vivaldi competition,
it was really out of a sense of what was missing in my life. Like, I had this job that I didn't think was enough. I was at a moment in my career where I really wanted to be this famous big bassoon player person, right? In a big orchestra. And I was, 30 something, and that wasn't what was happening. I was taking auditions and getting really close, but it wasn't happening. And so I was like, well, what's missing that would make me live here and be really happy? And I said, well, this was one piece of it, was like, if I did something that was bigger than myself and that would reach the bassoon community, that would provide some piece of missingness. And so I looked for the opportunities, and we created this thing that, it didn't just land on my lap. It was not like, oh, look at that door, I'll walk through it. It was like I had to say, oh, what would that door look like if I made the door?
Practicing is important. You need a lot of discipline to really get somewhere in music. And I think as well to then finally really be able to enjoy your performance on stage. No anxiety and stuff. This I've learned, and I've learned that music business is quite tough because in the beginning I was in Switzerland, one of the only bassoon players when I was a child. So I thought, there are not many bassoon players. It's easy, nice. I can do some competitions. But then when I grew older and started to do auditions internationally, a lot of competition. To be confident, I feel when I'm confident playing music, I'm more confident in the life as well. And the sensitivity, like I like it that sometimes in the music you can be very sensitive, and I think while you are playing music you need to be very open and very vulnerable. And so I think this is a nice quality as well in the life, not to be fake. Actually, this is it. When you play music and you want to touch people, you cannot be fake because otherwise you don't touch it. And so I think this is a quality which I like as well to have in the life and as me as a person. I think the most important thing is always to find your motivation. And if you ever feel that maybe some teacher this doesn't work, because we are all different, we all need maybe different kind of things, so don't hesitate, but find your own way.
I'd say just, be smart with money, be careful with all the debt and all that, and know that bassoons cost, a professional bassoon is at least $20,000 now, so factor that in. And I would say to figure out what else you would do if you can't make money in music, because it's involves a lot of luck. There are just too many people and there are not enough jobs. So know what else you would want to do to make some money. I would say focus all your extracurricular stuff in that. Learn some coding, learn HTML, learn design stuff, go learn Keynote right now, go learn Adobe Illustrator right now. YouTube there's tutorials for absolutely everything. There's sort of no excuse. So that would be my advice. And of course, be incredibly devoted and be incredibly hardworking, be open, learning from everyone. But the biggest thing I would say is just, you gotta go and solve your own problems. Like, no teacher is gonna make or break you. It doesn't matter what school you go to, it doesn't matter, it just doesn't matter. So what really matters is you solving your own problems. Solve whatever your teacher tells you to solve, but go ahead and solve 2 or 3 things in addition every week, and say, I have this problem. Even if it, really specific stuff, my tenor notes are flat, I'm gonna figure this out. My teacher told me, whatever, practice more double tonguing. Fine, do that too. And then go and solve your own problems, because it's the only way. There's just too many things to fix. So, no teacher is gonna be able to just fix everything for you. And so I think that's the one skill that is more important than anything else. It's just like improve your playing on your own. It's the only way.
You know, enjoy it. Just, you are so lucky to have music in your life, and I know how easy it is to get so wrapped up in comparing yourself to other players. Are you good enough to make it? And it's a hard business. But it's music. We are such lucky people to be playing music every single day of our life, creating something beautiful, connecting the human spirit within ourselves and with other people that we can share with. So embrace that gratitude and embrace the process, because if you can, rather than looking at the possible or impossible future of where this is all headed for you, if you look at what you can do today, enjoy the music making, but also, okay, I want to improve my double tonguing. This is where I am. What's the best strategy to be a little bit better at this in a half hour? And I know this is a process, so if I'm a little bit better in a week after doing it for a half hour a day, that's great. That can be so rewarding when you set these little goals for yourself and then playfully be the detective and figure out, well, what's wrong? Why am I not getting better today? Just no judgment there, just objectively, let's figure out what I can do to improve this. Something I'm doing is not working, so let me try this. And this kind of experimental mindset can be so fun, like a kid in a sandbox, and then you do make these new discoveries and improvements, and that's rewarding coming back at you. So yeah, embrace that process.
First of all, go easy on yourself, you know, be kind to yourself. Hustle, but keep your eye on the big picture, you know. So yeah, and then focus on how you'd like to make an impact in the world, and let that particular thing drive your direction forward and how you move forward in your career and in your life and in your playing and in your connection to music. And then I was going to say, it's funny because if you have an idea, go for it. Yeah, if you're willing to put in the time and the effort to bring it to fruition, good, go for it.
Focus on what you want to do. Dream, make that your goal. At the same time, look for other things that you love. You know, maybe you're mechanical, and maybe you make the best reeds in the world. So look how many wonderful people are out there now with reed businesses selling their reeds on the internet. And you didn't get that extra job you auditioned for. And you have to support yourself. Well, you have talent.
There's a lot of really great skills from music that carry over. My dad for work is actually a headhunter, and he says all the time he actually hires a lot of people with music degrees. Being able to be a musician, you're working on a project for long term, and you know, as soon as we play it, as soon as it's out of the instrument, it's gone, right? You don't have something that you can hold up and be like, I made this, you know. So you really learn to work on your own, to see the value of practicing and perseverance through all of that. That's super important no matter what you do. If you're a freelancer, you have to learn business skills, you're marketing yourself, you have a lot of good accounting to keep your books, you have to be really organized to teach, you have to be able to speak clearly and be understood to teach. All those things are really important. I mean, when you're playing the orchestra, you're just getting along with everybody, you're melding with everybody, nobody's right, you know, you're all just making it work. That's gonna work for you no matter what.
classical music has that amazing attention to detail, especially when you're talking about doing auditions. So you can do any kind of detail work. I think a lot of musicians are really good at scientific stuff or computer programming. I mean, there's so many directions that you can take it in.
Fundamentals are everything. And I wish I could tell my 12-year-old self this. If you do nothing else, practice your scales. Practice them the way a machine would do them. And don't move on until it's machine-like. John told me this in my first year at CIM, and I took it to heart, and I've never had a counterexample to suggest that he's wrong, and I believe it wholeheartedly. If you can play all your major scales at even 116 to the quarter note on a metronome in 16th notes over the entire range of the instrument, all the scales from low B flat to high E, in, potentially in a variety of articulations, but not even necessarily that. And you can play a great Mozart exposition of the concerto, then you are already ahead of 95% of your competition.
So this is also kind of funny because I lived in, I was not an athletic child or young adult, and I lived in Albuquerque for 3 years, and then in New Zealand for almost 3 years. And I mean, I'd get outside sometimes to do some hikes or tramps, but I wasn't really an outdoorsy person. I did start, when I was living in New Zealand, I have a car there, and I drove all over the country, and then maybe I'd get out and do like a hike for a couple of hours. But it was really only when I got back to the United States, I think having lived in these two really amazing places, and then I was back on the East Coast where I'd grown up and gone to school, and I mean, it has its charms. It has, obviously this feels like home. I like living in an urban environment, but it's not the American West or New Zealand, right? I mean, the Shenandoahs are pretty, but it's not the Rocky Mountains. It's not. So, but I really made it a conscious decision to spend more time, being outside and being active.
I feel like there's a lot of similarity between playing in an audition and playing a game of bowling, to the extent that you're in league, you're in competition, and this game counts for something. It's very much you have to, in an audition more than other places, with both auditions and with being up there on a bowling lane, doing this by yourself, bowling, we sometimes do leagues in teams, but it's not a team sport. The way that like baseball or basketball are, where there's little cooperation. And there's a certain sense in which you really have to quiet your mind. You have to think about what you're doing, what you're about to do, but you have to think of it in the simplest terms. In an audition, you can't be giving yourself like 20 different standing orders, I'll play it this way, but no, you gotta go in there, you gotta have it down, and you've gotta give yourself like one order,
I feel like I'm learning about myself now by looking back at those years, at the person I was back then and who I am now. The end of my time at University of Texas was actually harder than the rest of the time. I think a lot of people, and my wife, who's a violinist, had a similar kind of a downward trajectory at the end of school. I think a lot of people assume, well, at the end of school, you're prepared, you're done learning, and it's time to just, go win something real quick. You'll sound your best then, and everything is in this perfectly linear fashion. That wasn't the case with me, actually. And I think it's for a good reason. When I started at University of Texas, I had a relatively high opinion of my playing and very little actual knowledge of what good playing was. I hadn't done a lot of listening to good recordings. I hadn't been surrounded by a lot of really excellent bassoon players. I was basically the only one at my high school. And I thought it was pretty great. Well, you don't know anybody else. And so in freshman year, I was pretty confident. Then kind of through those 4 years there, I was only learning what I didn't know. You kind of have to learn what you don't know and then fill those gaps. But you first have to know where the gaps are.
Yeah, your musicianship reflects who you are. So don't lose sight of that. You do need to work hard. It's just a non-negotiable. But come to know yourself, your work style, your preference of how you express yourself, your favorite repertoire. Maybe you have an additional interest in another science or arts field, and you should learn all about that too, because that probably applies to music as well. And then the other thing worth knowing is that music schools and universities, campuses all over have resources that the real world doesn't. So if you have a research interest, or if you want to apply for money at school to do something, if you want to produce a certain concert that reflects your artistic interest, if you want to meet someone from another institution, all of that you can do at school, and it's so awesome if you do it then, because that could be a launching point for something huge in your ultimate career path. Jump in without fear, even though it's tough. People probably unavoidably will run into certain fears, but you're going to end up where you need to end up. And it's okay if it's not what your teacher did, because I'm sorry, it won't be what your teacher did, because good news, we all have our own individual path.
Discipline is probably the number one thing that would apply to anything else you do in life. Setting goals, which you have to be disciplined about in both setting them and then fulfilling them. Staying organized within those goals, making sure the work you're doing is going towards those goals.
Two things that maybe contradict each other, but I think it's important to do both of them. Those two things are, when you're young and you don't have responsibilities yet, you're not fully responsible for maintaining your own instrument. Like, let's say, in the case of bassoon players, normally we're renting an instrument, or we're using our school's bassoon. It's not a cheap instrument. Your parents can't just buy you a bassoon like they would buy you a trumpet or a cheaper instrument. You have less responsibilities. You don't have a job. You're not driving a car. You don't have kids. You're not married. Do as many things as you can. So I'm not talking just to musicians right now. I mean just young people who are in music, like they're in band or they're in choir or in orchestra. Do as much as you can. Find many things you like to do, whether it's sports, music, whatever, acting, something to do with, I've got students who are in martial arts and like fencing, and like they ride horses and stuff like that. Do those things, and try to fill your time with as many things, useful things as possible. Not sitting watching Netflix every weekend. If you can garden with your parents, go garden with your parents. If you can build a house with your big brother or something like that, go build a house. I had a high school buddy who bought a car when he was like 12 or 13 or something like that, and worked on the car until he was old enough to drive it. And, so he knows a ton about cars. Just do things. Because you can afford that risk. But then at the same time, which it sounds contradictory, but I don't think it's contradictory if you fully do this first thing that I just said. The second thing, if you find something that you truly love, you get joy out of it regardless of whether it's going well or it's going poorly, and you're good at it, drop everything and run for that. Just drop everything and run.
don't give up and try to find fun on it. Don't suffer much, like, and don't, and there is a time to be competitive and other times where you just have fun and just love that you can produce some art with your hands and your mouth, and you can produce. I mean, and sometimes even your soul will reflect in that playing. People that are like extremely shy, and then you hear them playing and you're like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. That's the only outlet they have. So, and just have fun and learn to be a team player. Very important. Learn to be a team player. Don't criticize if you don't need to. Be really careful when somebody asks for criticism.
Be authentically yourself. I've seen so many people, just try to go and network or pretend that you're better than you are, or pretend, just be who you really are. If your true self is good. If not, I would encourage, maybe doing some soul searching to become that person you want to be. I'd say in everything you do, you should be respectful. You don't have to, hopefully, I won't offend anybody. You don't have to, kiss butts or something like that. You just be respectful, treat people how you want to be treated, do your best in everything you do, whether it's music, whether it's, your punctuality, whether it's your, just try to do your best. And I'd say yes. Obviously you have to think about what's right for you, but if you have opportunities, take them, go for it. I have this quote of Jeff Lyman. He says, listen to everything, play everything, watch everything, read everything, eat everything, travel everywhere. Especially among all of the above, do all those things that people tell you not to listen to, play, watch, read, eat, or visit. But I think that's awesome. That's what makes the world go round.
I think I learned more about myself after college because I think I dedicated myself to becoming a bassoon player. But I think the reality is, you can't make your life about music. Music is a reflection of life. And so if you don't have a life, then your music is empty. And I feel like when I think about how I used to play and how I used to prepare music, it was never as a reflection of life. It was like, oh, that has to be short. Oh, that has to be forte. Oh, that has to be quiet, like that. And now, I think actually one of the things that's kind of helped me is stepping out of the classical music world. My daughter's father is an actor, and so I would go watch him on the stage and kind of realizing the parallels between acting and playing music and like the preparation, but the reality is if you don't have that real world experience, it's not going to come through on stage.
The pursuit of excellence is a really worthwhile skill for people to learn, and the discipline of doing something well. Also, not being afraid to fail and to make mistakes and learn from them and adapt your approach to do something better. That's really important. To love beauty and art, things that make humans different from other primates. That's really a good pursuit, and also to just immerse yourself in the tradition you're part of, the great wealth of artwork, plays, paintings, music, all of those things out there that humans have created over the centuries that are transformative. I mean, it's really something to be part of that. And I wish everybody would play an instrument or sing in a group or something like that. You know, it's such a better place. It's really a beautiful thing to be able to do.